Outside a grand gate, a curse echoed in the chilling air. Two guards whispered about the madman summoning everyone again, speculating it was related to the treasure stolen months ago. A voice boomed, demanding silence from all. Chasa, the commander, roared that from today, all soldiers and slaves in Najumak must dedicate their full efforts to finding the treasure of Cheoyong. He promised promotions and riches to anyone who reported the whereabouts of the thief. Park. Chasa frantically screamed, demanding everyone quickly retrieve the treasure that he could not lose to anyone. But then he suddenly realized a horrifying truth. The treasure was not his. An illusion appeared, showing him being punished for the sin of coveting what did not belong to him. A shadow entity questioned what he would use to pay for that sin, causing Chasa extreme agony. Back in reality, an official urged the soldiers on, but a captain showed dissatisfaction at having heard this refrain for months. The official threatened to make them all pay, while the captain secretly thought this order was truly bothersome. The captain wondered if the one in control intended to make a move. Suddenly, he was astonished as a gigantic, demonic hand appeared right behind him. The entire squad of soldiers screamed in panic as they were attacked and slaughtered by the mysterious creature. The captain shrieked in horror, realizing the attacker was a goblin. The goblin charged with terrifying speed, giving no one a chance to escape. The setting was revealed to be Najumak, Goryeo, in the year 1232. The narration explained that a goblin uprising had occurred, as Najumak was originally created by them and their followers. In this place, the survivors became sacrifices, and the dead became food. In that land forgotten by all, the gates of hell had opened. A tall figure in splendid boots strode forward, intimidating an entire army of dark demons that had gathered. The general cleared his throat. All dark demons, listen up. From now on, we will reclaim Cheoyong's treasure, the very thing that plunged the world into chaos, he declared while crushing a helmet. The wicked goblins and their ilk will be punished, he commanded. If anyone stands in our way, kill them. With absolute authority, Hyanje Choya concluded. I permit it. 12 years later, near Mount Songgak, night enveloped a desolate mountain path. A cart driver nervously said, "It's truly chilling. I think goblins might appear." The other replied, "Don't jinx it. Haven't you heard the rumors that the bandits around here are actually goblins?" The first cart driver dismissed it, then grew curious about the Najumak incident and the mysterious black-clad bodyguards the noble had hired. From behind, one of the hooded figures warned them to be silent. Beneath the hood, a pair of glowing red eyes and a demonic smile revealed the bodyguard's true nature. Meanwhile, the noble sitting in the palanquin laughed gleefully. He opened a box, exclaiming, "I'm so lucky. A sickle handle I thought was junk is actually one of Cheoyong's treasures." He admired the frost scythe, one of the few artifacts bearing Cheoyong's mysterious power. The noble secretly thought that by presenting this to the general, his life would be secure, and no one would dare disrespect him again. His triumphant laughter suddenly ceased as a strange sound echoed. Suddenly, a violent tremor struck, causing the entire convoy to sway in panic. A gigantic goblin with a gaping maw landed, a cart driver already fallen at its feet. The remaining cart driver shrieked in horror. "It's a goblin!" Even the hooded bodyguard was stunned by the monster's sudden appearance. A colossal goblin appeared, spreading terror through the scattered convoy. The monster roared, demanding their lives in exchange for the treasure. Suddenly, Imugi Sky lunged and delivered a kick to the goblin's head, causing a cart driver to frantically shout for everyone to flee. Imugi Sky casually sat on the monster's head, scoffing that he had no need for their mundane lives, and dismissed them all. However, that person paused, sensing something unusual. From the shadows, a group of strangers emerged, remarking that the air felt a bit chilly. Their leader declared that they knew their target was the treasure of Cheoyong. He pulled down his face covering, revealing glowing eyes, and remarked that things were truly unfortunate. Captain Lee Do-hyung drew his twin swords, preparing to charge into battle with his dark demons. Imugi Sky angrily shouted, questioning the actions of the newly arrived group. Lee Do-hyung declared that the game of hide-and-seek was over, introducing himself as a goblin hunter. He, captain of the 7th Assault Squad, Lee Do-hyung, contemptuously called the goblins trash. Imugi Sky was stunned upon realizing the enemy's identity as dark demons. Lee Do-hyung scoffed that the goblin's stupidity was obvious, but instead of attacking the goblin, he unexpectedly delivered a devastating punch to one of the black-clad bodyguard. The black-clad bodyguard was sent flying. To everyone's astonishment, Lee Do-hyung stood over the defeated foe, demanding he stop being lazy and reveal his true form. A cart driver shrieked in horror, calling the name of the fallen bodyguard, Hangul. Despite being gravely wounded, Hangul still managed to order his comrades to deal with the weaker ones first. Hangul growled a warning that otherwise, they would face the consequences. A card introduces Hangul, the Dark Demon's 6th-rank assassin, as he wonders if these underlings are too much of a burden for a 7th-rank individual. Lee Do-hyung appears surprised, while Hangul secretly acknowledges the opponent's reputation as Dark Demon's finest sword. Lee Do-hyung encourages Hangul to ignore him and the treasures and unleash his full power, praising the Dark Demons as Goryeo finest sword. Hangul disdainfully admits Lee Do-hyung's assessment is correct, and is wished good luck as Lee Do-hyung departs. From a distance, Imugi Sky observes their skirmish, holding a blue energy orb. The treasure in that person's hand is revealed to be the Goblin Staff, an incomplete Ruyi Pearl. Imugi Sky decides to intervene, shouting for them to leave the treasure and be gone. Imugi Sky orders the giant goblin named Ki to attack, while Lee Do-hyung charges forward to meet the challenge, proclaiming himself Goryeo's finest sword. Obeying the command, Rock Goblin Ki roars and swings its massive arm towards the Dark Demons. The Dark Demon army is struck by the giant goblin's swing. Imugi Sky shouts, "Take this and be gone!" as a stream of blue energy from the Ruyi Pearl blows away the enemies. Lee Do-hyung steels himself, charging directly into the sweeping energy stream. To Hangul's astonishment, Lee Do-hyung sliced through the energy attack. One of the defeated bodyguards is thrown away by the aftershock, screaming in horror. The noble angrily shouts, scolding the useless Goryeo soldiers for failing to escort him properly. He panics upon realizing the Gaegyong capital is nearby, determined not to let this golden opportunity slip away because of these goblins. Determined to survive at all costs, the noble decides to flee alone. Suddenly, sharp objects whiz through the air towards him. The noble is stunned as the weapons embed themselves in the ground, forming an X that blocks his escape route. A pair of cold red eyes observes from afar, revealing the one who intervened. The noble is aghast to see his retreat blocked by two swords. Unexpectedly, Lee Do-hyung lets out a groan from behind his mask. He stumbles, clutching his head and collapsing in extreme pain. The noble is terrified as a strange voice rings out, commanding, "Leave it, human." A half-human, half-deer creature with large antlers appears, warning him not to fall behind. The strange creature repeats its threat, its glowing red eyes staring intently at the noble. Meanwhile, Lee Do-hyung screams, a blinding light emanating from his mouth. His entire body is enveloped in a stream of purple electrical energy, making the noble scream, "No!" The noble can only scream in horror at the unbelievable sight. But then, the deer-like creature suddenly vomits a rainbow stream, making the noble wonder if he's going insane. He is utterly bewildered by this extremely bizarre situation. Lee Do-hyung calms down, wipes his mouth, and mutters that he drank too much while waiting. Seeing this as an opportunity, the noble thinks to himself that it's time to make a quick escape. But as he turns away, he is startled to see the deer creature standing right in front of him. The creature warns that there are things humans shouldn't casually meddle with, or they will pay the price. The goblin named Green scoffs, asking if he really intends to abandon such a bargain. At the same time, Lee Do-hyung is shouting chaotic instructions to his team in the fight against Rock Goblin Ki. A team member struggles to dodge an attack, causing Lee Do-hyung to angrily scold them. Hangul also contributes to the chaos by shouting contradictory directions. Overwhelmed with frustration, Lee Do-hyung unleashes a powerful surge of energy around him. Amidst the chaotic battle, Hangul buries his face in his hands in exasperation, wondering why he has such teammates. Lee Do-hyung also expresses annoyance at his team's lack of organization. Another member with a topknot swings his sword, shouting that Rock Goblin Ki is still stupidly strong as always. That person lands, declaring they will restart the attack. Then that person suddenly turns around and shouts loudly for someone. It turns out, that person is pushing a cart, calling for Lee Do-hyung. That person pushes the cart with all their might, calling their captain Hyung. Lee Do-hyung is launched from the cart like a bullet, screaming loudly. While flying, Lee Do-hyung shouts angry self-reproaches about his weak body, confusing Goblin Green. Lee Do-hyung continues his rampage, flying directly towards Goblin Green. Lee Do-hyung grabs Goblin Green's face, scolding him for arranging a meeting. Witnessing the scene, the top-knot-haired teammate can only stammer curses. That person unconvincingly tries to reassure themselves that everything is still going according to plan. Elsewhere, Imugi Sky is angrily scolding Goblin Green for letting his guard down. But then Imugi Sky pouts, declaring that he had prepared for times like these. Imugi Sky shouts a name, White Ghost, unleashing a massive surge of energy. A white ghostly entity appears at the call, and Imugi Sky asks it to take care of Goblin Green, while Lee Do-hyung scoffs. White Ghost hovers above Goblin Green, speaking in a majestic tone, reminding Lee Do-hyung to show respect. Lee Do-hyung is stunned, astonished that White Ghost appeared suddenly without a sound. Immediately regaining his composure, Lee Do-hyung mocks White Ghost, who is standing on Goblin Green's head, likening the entity to a spoiled child who still haggles. White Ghost looked down disdainfully, ordering, "Shut up! You're dirtying my shoes." Lee Do-hyung was surprised by the appearance of the new enemy, while Imugi Sky questioned White Ghost. "Why haven't you finished yet? Don't tell me you were pushed back by those pathetic bastards." Angered by Imugi Sky's words, Lee Do-hyung growled. What? Pathetic? Bastards? He provoked White Ghost, who was hovering in the air. Adult goblins are only good at boasting. Hey, aren't you coming down? Lee Do-hyung told himself that dealing with these guys was completely different. They couldn't be underestimated. He clenched his fist, dark energy beginning to surge as he prepared to attack. White Ghost's eyes widened in surprise as he sensed Lee Do-hyung's sudden surge of power. Unleashing all his demonic energy, Lee Do-hyung transformed into a phantom and declared, I'll send you to the afterlife in good harmony with your friends. He mockingly yelled, Don't be too sad, then charged forward. The surprise attack passed through White Ghost and struck Green, who was standing behind him, causing him to cry out in pain. Lee Do-hyung swept past, leaving a massive vortex of dark energy swirling around the target. Green screamed tragically as the dark energy tore through his body. White Ghost looked at his hand, realizing the attack had passed through without causing damage, and wondered, A human controlling demonic energy. What have you done to my body? Lee Do-hyung scoffed. That's a special gift for goblins. So, do you like it? A special gift, my ass. I don't like it, White Ghost retorted angrily, a sinister smile appearing as he gathered his strength. Lee Do-hyung showed extreme excitement. This is the kind of spirit and metal I've only heard about. I don't like you either. He roared, You silver-haired bitch, then unleashed a massive dark slash. Two terrifying streams of energy collided, creating a violent explosion. The shockwave from the explosion spread, causing Imugi Sky, who was observing from afar, to scream. Imugi Sky furiously roared. No! Why did that guy abandon his defenses and start fighting? I will never forget what happened today. The noble groaned as a dark energy orb clung to his hand, vowing to report everything to the general. That person's eye transformed, the pupil swirling red in silent horror. Screaming in pain, that person fearfully wondered what this was, sensing the path leading to it. From a distant place, Hyunjae Choya, with glowing red eyes, commanded, Stop right now. Meanwhile, Lee Do-hyung in his dark demon form was overwhelming White Ghost, and Hyunjae Choya roared, Open it! White Ghost struggled to his feet, sarcastically remarking that carrying heavy burdens wasn't cool at all, but Lee Do-hyung replied that he would give him eternal rest. Lee Do-hyung scoffed that goblins were only good at running their mouths, making Green, who was witnessing it, wonder why this was happening. Green desperately lamented the precious cypress tree he had cared for 10 years. Lee Do-hyung merely smirked at the goblin's suffering. Suddenly, the noble, transformed into a phantom, lunged to attack, making Green exclaim in astonishment. Green was sent flying, unable to comprehend what the hell was going on. The possessed noble mumbled, raising a dazzling golden disc-shaped artifact. The artifact emitted intense dark energy from the red gem at its center. On the battlefield, everyone, from Lee Do-hyung to White Ghost, stared in stunned silence towards the source of the energy. The noble's body exploded into a shower of blood, leaving the artifact suspended in midair. Hangul screamed in horror. What the hell is this? The artifact erupted with a blinding flash, unleashing its full power. Dark energy and golden light violently swirled together. A vortex of energy formed, engulfing the entire battlefield in destructive light. When the light faded, the entire area was desolate, the warriors standing stunned amidst the ruins. Imugi Sky was worried because Miho had told him to bring back the treasure, realizing this was a big problem. Amidst the battle, Lee Do-hyung called out to Hangul, asking if he heard anything unusual, but his comrade only replied that he hadn't yet. However, Hangul immediately sensed something approaching. Suddenly, a rift tore open in midair. A red object shot through the rift at terrifying speed. It was a ferocious demon head, emitting eerie growls. Both White Ghost and Hangul were stunned by this sudden appearance. Immediately after, countless other demon heads began pouring out from the spatial rift. They roared savagely as their bodies gradually regenerated. A red demon with a complete form and weapon in hand let out a defiant roar. Lee Do-hyung called Hangul's name again, but this time only received a curt reply. I don't know you, bastard, Hangul snapped back. An entire army of red demons poured onto the battlefield, causing utter chaos. From the shadows, a mysterious hooded figure chuckled, whispering that everything was proceeding according to his will. That person's demonic face was revealed beneath the hood, asserting that the plan would come to fruition. The army of red lizards had fully assembled, ready for the slaughter. Witnessing the scene, Imugi Sky screamed in horror. I hate lizards. Meanwhile, Green looked at White Ghost and mumbled that he looked familiar. Green suddenly remembered, shouting, That's right. I remember you now. You, Gunyong, causing White Ghost to snap back, telling him to shut up. Green continued to scold. If you hadn't foolishly lost the treasure, none of this would have happened, making Gunyong angrily ask back, What? Foolishly? Lee Do-hyung sarcastically remarked that the Red Demon Army were White Ghost's friends and asked if he was scared. White Ghost arrogantly retorted that he was the type of person who didn't need any preparation. With that, he unleashed a dark magic attack. The surprise attack struck Lee Do-hyung, leaving him stunned. White Ghost realized that the Lizard Army also had no intention of being friends. Sighing wearily, Lee Do-hyung found this chaotic situation to be a headache. Lee Do-hyung's team panicked as the Red Demons simultaneously charged to attack. Lee Do-hyung snapped at the general assault, using red ribbons to defend. He shouted loudly, telling the demons to go play with someone else because he was busy. But the Red Demons ignored him, simultaneously slamming their weapons onto the ground. A team member yelled that they would buy time for Lee Do-hyung. Lee Do-hyung snapped back, telling him not to order him around, while the entire team was fighting fiercely. The ponytail hunter challenged a demon, asking if it knew the consequences of facing Goryo's best sword. With that, he swung his weapon, creating a powerful slash, and shouted loudly, demanding the enemy to look closely. Lee Do-hyung realized they were still the original ones, but something was wrong. He wondered in astonishment why their numbers were so vast. The ponytail hunter was stunned after taking down a demon. Immediately after, he was overwhelmed by the entire horde of demons and roared in anger. One of Lee Do-hyung's eyes flashed blue, and he growled that the demons were acting recklessly without knowing who their opponent was, then chanted the skill name Ghostface Sulchi Bag. Lee Do-hyung charged at a demon, unleashing his technique with terrifying speed. Lee Do-hyung let out a roar, then charged at the enemy, activating his skill. He leaped into the air, preparing to deliver a direct attack on the demons. In the blink of an eye, Lee Do-hyung stood amidst a pool of blood, having finished off all surrounding enemies. From a distance, Hangul observed and remarked that Lee Do-hyung's movements were smooth and without hesitation. Suddenly, Hangul sensed a foul aura, an unsettling feeling washing over him. His senses heightened, detecting the presence of a stranger using magic. The individual's power created ghostly illusions, gliding like specters. They moved with terrifying speed through the forest. Finally, the mysterious mastermind's silhouette appeared with a gruesome smile in the darkness. Hangul cried out in horror, certain that someone was lurking here. He was utterly shocked by the presence he had just detected. Immediately, a surge of dark energy erupted and seized Hangul. As he was dragged away, Hangul screamed, a desperate warning that anyone would die if captured. However, the mysterious individual merely sneered, mocking that today was not that day. It spoke cryptically about its future role, then vanished with Hangul. Meanwhile, Lee Do-hyung was also knocked away and groaned, while Green was being attacked by a demon. White Ghost appeared, also showing annoyance at the chaotic situation. He rushed forward and delivered a direct kick to Green, calling him, "You dear." Standing over Green, White Ghost both scolded him and asserted that he had saved his life once again. In the midst of battle, Hangul yelled and charged, punching a red demon directly. Lee Do-hyung irritably yelled at Hangul not to bother him and to get lost. Hangul angrily pointed, demanding to return to the topic of their 7th place. The two faced each other, Hangul challenging Lee Do-hyung, offering to show him the difference between them. A nearby red demon appeared stunned by their argument. Setting aside their conflict, both charged into attack, unleashing sharp moves. A red demon was torn apart by countless slashes and screamed in pain. Standing over the demon's corpse, Hangul questioned Lee Do-hyung about intentionally throwing his sword, but only received a sarcastic reply. Lee Do-hyung grew angry, while a mysterious voice from afar remarked that they were quite interesting. The leader of the red demons, an individual with a red cross mark on his forehead, appeared and commented on their relationship. Both Hangul and Lee Do-hyung simultaneously denied being friends, then immediately leaped away from each other. The leader grinned sinisterly, as a blinding light emanated from the midst of his army. He ordered the two to retreat if they didn't want to die. Despite the warning, Hangul leaped into the air and unleashed an attack. Suddenly, both were tightly bound by brown vines by a teammate wearing a white mask. The teammate held them firmly, rendering them unable to move, and causing them to cry out from being restrained. Seizing the opportunity, the red demons roared and simultaneously charged to attack. In the critical moment, White Ghost appeared with sharp eyes. White Ghost unleashed a massive surge of energy, shattering the ground and halting the enemy's assault. Lee Do-hyung questioned Hangul's attitude, who was indifferently considering apologizing to Green. While Green mumbled about his achievement, White Ghost appeared behind him and coldly stated that it was an unnecessary act. White Ghost continued to scold Green, warning that his loose tongue had gotten him into trouble with humans. White Ghost waved him off with an annoyed expression, while Green secretly cursed him in his heart out of fear. In a stream of thought, White Ghost seethed about the cursed shackles and swore that one day he would capture his arch-nemesis. Back in reality, Hangul breathed a sigh of relief as the energy orb seemed to have vanished. Just as Lee Do-hyung wondered if it was all over, Hangul angrily shouted, warning him not to utter forbidden words. To Lee Do-hyung's bewilderment, Hangul clutched his head in panic, yelling that everything was ruined and trouble was starting again. True to Hangel's words, the energy orb suddenly shook violently, making everyone look back in astonishment. The orb began to suck everything around it into its center, accumulating a massive amount of energy. The energy converged to its peak, emitting a blinding light that signaled an impending explosion. A terrifying sound echoed as the orb exploded, creating a sea of fire that engulfed the entire area. Amidst the sea of fire, Hangul pointed and declared that this was the foretold consequence. From within the flames, a colossal dark fire demon rose, causing someone in the group to exclaim in panic, "What? Is that fire?" In contrast to everyone's fear, Green seemed delighted, ready for a game with fire. Green fired a stream of water from his weapon, causing someone to mock his action. A warning shout rang out as Green was surrounded by fierce flames. Hangul grabbed Lee Do-young, frantically yelling that his actions were like adding fuel to the fire, even though Lee Do-young still didn't understand what was happening. Trapped in the sea of fire, Green desperately realized his attack was useless and shouted for Kid for help. Standing on Rock Goblin Key's shoulder, Imugi Sky shouted that he was taking action while unleashing a stream of blue energy. Amidst the sea of fire, Green breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he had almost lost his life. Hangul also let out a breath, annoyed at almost being roasted by the stupid deer, but then suddenly noticed something unusual. Everyone looked up at the sky in horror, where a pair of glowing red eyes were forming amidst the pitch-black cloud. Those evil eyes stared down from above, radiating a terrifying pressure. Lee Do-hyung froze, realizing the impending disaster. A colossal monster with red armor materialized, and Lee Do-hyung horrifyingly thought of the forbidden words. The great monster loomed on the battlefield, its size completely overwhelming everyone present. Facing the peril, Hangul turned to Lee Do-hyung, speaking of the possibility that he might not return alive. Lee Do-hyung seriously instructed that even if he had to sacrifice himself, the Dark Demon's mission must be completed, and asked Hangul to burn his Spring Flowers collection. Hangul agreed, then paused, snapping to ask where the collection was, and Lee Do-hyung pointed to its hiding place. Angrily, Hangul grabbed Lee Do-hyung, scolding him for talking nonsense at such a critical moment. But Lee Do-hyung still urgently demanded a promise. Hangul yelled, telling Lee Do-hyung to shut up. The colossal monster seemed to have noticed the argument, its eye glowing brightly. Lee Do-hyung nervously wondered if they had been spotted, but Hangul dismissed it, thinking they were too small to be seen. The monster's gaze flashed with a red light, making Lee Do-hyung cry out that it had seen them, and Hangul scolded him for not staying silent. The monster roared and charged to attack, the group only able to scream in despair. Lee Do-hyung, deciding escape was impossible, shouted the name of a skill, Demon Gate Equipment Pouch. Taking a breath, Lee Do-hyung challenged the monster as a blinding light was unleashed from his hand. Hangul cried out in pain as he was sent flying by an extremely fast attack. He exclaimed in astonishment, unable to believe such a massive creature possessed such terrifying speed. Witnessing the scene, Green also shouted excitedly at the insane power. Imugi Sky immediately acted, shouting for Ki and creating a blue energy orb. Rock Goblin Ki roared in response, preparing to receive support. Standing on Ki's head, Imugi Sky deployed a colossal three-layered shield to block the Red Dragon Demon's attack. However, the shield shattered instantly, and Rock Goblin Ki's arms began to be torn apart. Rock Goblin Ki screamed in agony as his body was crushed by the opponent's power. The Red Dragon Demon easily pierced through the defense, unstoppable. Hangul coughed in alarm, wondering what that monster truly was. White Ghost appeared, grumbling about the sudden appearance of the new enemy. Everyone on the battlefield looked up at the colossal form of the Red Dragon Demon looming over them. White Ghost roared in anger, deeming a mere commoner dared to challenge him. He darted forward, unleashing a technique called Shadow Blade towards the monster. The colossal Shadow Blade struck the Red Dragon Demon, creating a powerful impact. Hangul cheered in praise, but White Ghost immediately yelled at him to shut up and threatened to deal with him after handling that lizard. Hangul hastily flattered him, calling White Ghost Big Brother based on the logic of the stronger one, which only made White Ghost more disdainful. White Ghost called Hangul an idiot, while the Red Dragon Demon growled, preparing for its next attack. The monster let out an earth-shattering roar, unleashing Dragon's might, which made both White Ghost and Hangul scream in pain. Hangul angrily shouted, demanding White Ghost retract his words. Meanwhile, White Ghost was writhing in extreme pain, admitting that he was suffering greatly. Both were sent flying by the Red Dragon Demon's power, White Ghost letting out a desperate cry. Hangul fell sprawling on the ground, uttering a curse as he realized the perilous situation. He quickly analyzed that if White Ghost's attack had no effect, then normal attacks would also be meaningless. So, Hangul decided to aim for the only weakness every creature possesses. With a determined gaze, he identified the monster's eye as his main target and activated the skill Demon Face Reduction Pouch. Using the body enhancement spell, Hangul shot forward like an arrow. He flew straight towards the Red Demon Dragon, aiming directly for its colossal eye. But just before striking, Hangul was astonished to find himself caught. The colossal monster's jaws began to close, crushing Hangul inside. Hangul let out a desperate scream as he was squeezed by the terrifying force. His attack had completely failed. The red demon dragon's eye was unharmed. Suddenly, Hangul used his weapon to pry open the monster's jaws, creating a gap. Li Do-young suddenly appeared, coughing up blood but still sarcastically remarking that Hangul was useless without him, then unleashed serrated sword. Seizing the opportunity, Hangul used Li Do-young's attack as a springboard, simultaneously mocking the 7th rank of the person who had just saved him. Li Do-young roared in anger, demanding that Hangul not call him by his rank. Hangul replied with a sneer, asking if Li Do-young would die from overexertion. Li Do-young, too exhausted to lift a finger, urged Hangul to stop babbling and quickly end the battle. Hangul charged straight at the red demon dragon, declaring he would be the one to burn its spring flower collection. With a sky-shattering yell, he plunged his weapon directly into the monster's colossal eye. As he attacked, Hangul mocked, telling the red demon dragon to die in silence. The monster roared in pain, flinging Hangul off its head. Losing his balance, Hangul screamed as he was thrown into the air. He realized in horror that the red demon dragon was preparing to unleash the flames he had seen before. Hangul TSK'd, bracing himself for the incoming attack. Suddenly, a rock and a blue energy orb shot forth, catching the red demon dragon off guard. The rock slammed hard into the monster's head, stunning it. The energy orb exploded inside the red demon dragon's mouth, making Hangul also scream from the shockwave. Rock, Goblin Key, and Imugi Sky appeared, revealing themselves as the ones who had intervened. Imugi Sky taunted the red demon dragon, asking how that attack tasted. Blown high into the air by the explosion, Hangul breathed a sigh of relief, having narrowly escaped death. As he fell freely, he pondered the overwhelming power of the enemies he was facing. Deciding to prioritize survival, Hangul swung his weapon out to find something to latch onto. An idea suddenly struck him as he saw his target. Hangul was astonished when his weapon firmly latched onto the red demon dragon's scales. From a distance, Green watched the changing tide of the battle with annoyance. Green declared that the chess game had been set and decided to use the giant to deliver a decisive blow. White Ghost roared in anger, cursing the enemy to rot. Immediately, a surge of dark energy tore through the red demon dragon's body amidst its painful roars. The colossal monster disintegrated into pieces in midair. Witnessing the horrifying sight, Hangul wondered where this white-haired individual had come from. Meanwhile, Hangul's weapon accidentally embedded itself into one of the falling monster's teeth. Hangul was startled as his own weapon suddenly yanked him away. He was dragged uncontrollably along with the colossal demon's corpse. Suspended in mid-air, Hangul began to lament his misfortune. Then he screamed in despair as he realized he was falling straight towards Rock Goblin Key. Hangul's piercing scream echoed across the battlefield. Leaning against a tree, Li Do-young, exhausted but still sarcastic, hoped Hangul would burn the spring flower collection well. He mumbled that it was all Hangul's fault for things turning out this way. Suddenly, Li Do-young looked up, astonished by the incredible height. Elsewhere, Green warned White Ghost that if they made a mistake, the price would be their life. Li Do-young boldly declared that a dark demon would never let personal emotions affect their mission. He smiled smugly, secretly praising his own skills. Suddenly, White Ghost launched an attack that made Green exclaim in horror, "Dark demon!" Li Do-young took the full force of the fatal blow, but still declared himself the great general's sword for the stability of Goryeo. As Li Do-young's body collapsed, White Ghost coldly judged, demanding that he make the world aware of his dark magic and crimes. Li Do-young, with eyes burning with hatred, growled a vow to exterminate the goblin race. White Ghost sneered coldly, a dull, worn-out knife. He continued to condemn, "Not only do you cause incidents, but you also falsely accuse innocent people. Today, I will pluck out your venomous tongue." Li Do-young sneered, "So you're finally showing your true colors? Is that enough for such a will?" White Ghost replied cryptically, "None of them." Witnessing the scene, Green suddenly froze as a memory flooded back. I've seen this before. He recalled the event 12 years ago in Najumak, where Imugi Sky confronted the colossal red demon dragon. It was a place dubbed Hell. In the memory, Imugi Sky startled and screamed when the monster suddenly moved. Back in the present, White Ghost was slightly confused by the unusual silence. The memory continued. Imugi Sky panicked upon realizing the red dragon demon had not yet been defeated. Imugi Sky immediately unleashed a massive energy orb and shouted, "Stop fighting and save the goblins." The powerful attack shot straight towards the colossal monster. The red dragon demon's sturdy armor began to crack under the power of the energy orb. The beast roared one last time as its body was torn apart. The entire group, including Imugi Sky, was astonished by the terrifying power they had just witnessed. Green anxiously asked if the enemy was truly dead, then urged Key to go check. Li Do-young whispered in fear, Has the hole been closed? White Ghost sensed something amiss, decided to turn back, and told Green, "You go ahead. I need to meet that person for a bit." Green realized White Ghost was Gu Ning, and decided he had to go meet that person. Green whispered a final message, asking them not to look for him anymore. Angrily, White Ghost yelled, "Hey dear," and attacked Green. White Ghost was annoyed by everyone's recklessness and declared he would return. Suddenly, a voice rang out, ordering White Ghost to stop. Lee Do-hyung, despite being severely wounded and coughing, still stood up to block the way. He declared that as long as he was alive, he wouldn't let White Ghost take a single step. White Ghost grabbed Lee Do-hyung, explaining that they were only trying to retrieve Cho-young's stolen treasure. White Ghost asserted that it had nothing to do with Lee Do-hyung's current mission. White Ghost threatened that if they met again, he would personally tear Lee Do-hyung apart. With that, White Ghost used a surge of energy to blast Lee Do-hyung and his subordinates away. A dark demon reported the situation to Lee Do-hyung, who was referred to as the unit commander. The subordinate reported that Jin Dane's whereabouts were unknown, the merchants had fled, and all dark demon members were severely wounded, except for Hangul. Upon hearing that no one had died, Lee Do-hyung's eye twitched slightly. He sighed in relief, then secretly cursed Hangul as an idiot. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appeared, mocking Lee Do-hyung's pathetic state. Lee Do-hyung horrifyingly recognized the figure as the fifth death sentence. A grotesque phantom with colossal wings emerged from an energy vortex. A voice echoed in Lee Do-hyung's mind, reiterating that the original mission was simply to transport an item to Gaegyung. Choi Moo-hyun roared, slamming the fifth death sentence to the ground in a brutal attack. He mocked his subordinate for accompanying the idiotic Hangul and botching a trivial task. Choi Moo-hyun, the fifth-place detached commander of the Dark Demons, grabbed the person and called them filthy trash. Meanwhile, Lee Do-hyung began to report that his team was escorting Chae-yong's treasure. His report about the lost treasure and Hangul's presumed death was cut short by Choi Moo-hyun's furious shout. Choi Moo-hyun scornfully stated that Hangul's death was a disgrace to the Dark Demons. He turned to question Lee Do-hyung, suspecting that he had merely stood by and watched his comrades fall. Lee Do-hyung, distraught by the goblin chaos and everything else, bowed his head, accepting any punishment. Choi Moo-hyun smirked, promising to torture him until he begged for death. But there was something to be done first. A dark entity with a glowing red eye at its center was summoned. He commanded that the first thing to do was to quench their thirst with goblin blood. Choi Moo-hyun's summons rang out, calling all dark demons. In the desolate land, the entire army received orders to prepare for the hunt. A hooded dark demon let out a wicked laugh. As another member walked away, a plant-like dark demon emerged from the ground, wondering about their next move. Hangul, who was presumed dead, suddenly appeared and responded. With a crazed smile, Hangul declared that he had made his decision. Under the moonlight, a white-haired dark demon suggested they fill their stomachs first. A stream of blue energy poured forth from its glowing eye. Under the moonlight, an old sorcerer collapsed at the feet of a black-cloaked assassin. The last breath of life escaped the dead sorcerer's eyes. Elsewhere, another assassin's eyes gleamed in the darkness. Two guards lazily watched over a box, unaware of the introduction of Hangul, leader of the Dark Demon Assassin Squad, echoing. One guard stretched, complaining about the fatigue of following the general's orders. Suddenly, that guard coughed up blood and died, horrifying his comrade upon hearing of Captain Kim Cheomji's family, who had colluded with goblins. Hangul stood on the rooftop, declaring he would destroy everything, blood splattering from his slash onto the gate. Fresh blood stained the ancient roof tiles red. Meanwhile, two servants in the mansion wondered about the unusual silence of the night. They chatted about their master suddenly becoming pensive and going to bed early, completely unaware of a shadow rushing towards them. Soon, the entire mansion was engulfed in a sea of blood with countless corpses. The reward for this mission was 100 million. Inside the rooms, the chaos of the massacre was still evident. The cold moonlight shone down on the deadly scene. A decorative feather fell, signaling the attacker's presence. Hangul, with his distinctive two-toned hair, hid behind a pillar and called out to an old man. He sneered, asking if the old man thought they would overlook this betrayal. Outside the room door, Hangul warned that there would be no pain if they didn't resist, while inside, people screamed for help, having been captured by goblins. He muttered about internal divisions, deciding to deal with all those who had betrayed him. A shadowy entity gripped Kim Cheomji's head, making the old man scream in despair. Immediately, Hangul lunged out of hiding, shouting now. In a flashback, Hangul stared in astonishment at the scene before him, while Kim Cheomji shrieked as a hand reached into his mouth. Hangul was utterly stunned, unable to believe what he was seeing. A child wearing a birthday hat cheerfully held up a tumor, boasting that they had removed the disgusting thing that had bothered a shaggy-haired man for 30 years. The child, Jan Byal, explained that this was in exchange for the rice cakes his grandfather had bought for them. The whole family laughed happily, the shaggy-haired man proudly calling Jan Byal the best Buell. The joy abruptly ended as Janbayal flinched, looking towards Hangul. Janbayal innocently questioned the intruder, who was inexplicably silent. With their family behind them, Janbayal asked Hangul if he had come for healing, and where he was hurting. Hangul clutched his head in pain as Janbayal asked if his eyes hurt. Memories shattered, and reality returned as Kim Cheomji and the shaggy-haired man screamed in horror, urging Janbayal to run. Janbayal could only look up blankly before a fatal slash swung down. Fresh blood splattered onto the rooftop, signaling a massacre. The two older men could only helplessly watch the horrifying scene unfold with extreme pain. The truth was revealed. Hangul held a knife to Janbayal's throat, the child fearfully calling for their grandfather. Kim Cheomji and the other man desperately begged Hangul to spare the child. Despite the offer to trade Janbayal's life for all their money, Hangul coldly charged forward. Kim Cheomji suddenly froze. He recognized something in the assassin's eyes. He realized that this person had no interest in material wealth. Holding Janbayal tightly, Hangul heard Kim Cheomji ask about the reputation of General Hyunjae Choya. Upon realizing who was behind it all, Kim Cheomji burst into a frantic and desperate laugh. Hangul was confused by Kim Cheomji's laughter, wondering if the old man had another scheme. Suddenly, Kim Cheomji's hand moved with astonishing speed. Kim Cheomji threw his entire body onto the blade, using himself to hold Hangul tightly. To everyone's astonishment, Hangul couldn't believe that the old man had used his own body to block the knife. With a pained yet serene expression, Kim Cheomji said that it was fortunate the target was only his old life. While Hangul unsuccessfully tried to pull out the knife, Janbayal desperately cried out for their grandfather. Kim Cheomji recalled Janbayal's difficult past, a child who grew up amidst abuse and hunger. He secretly thought that despite everything, Janbayal still grew up to be a well-behaved and bright child. Janbayal could only scream and cry their grandfather's name in utter horror. Tears streaming down his face, Kim Cheomji begged Hangul to take his life. He pleaded for the young life to be spared, while Hangul merely observed coldly. Kim Cheomji whispered a final prayer, hoping for protection. Without a moment's hesitation, Hangul's hand swung towards Janbayal. The ruthless assassin took the child's life right before Kim Cheomji's eyes. Kim Cheomji reached out his bloodied hand in utter despair as he witnessed the horrific scene. Janbayal's small body collapsed before the threshold. The child lay motionless on the cold ground. The door slammed shut, sealing the tragedy within. Suddenly, Choi Moo-hyun, with his glowing blue eyes, charged forward. Hangul cried out in pain from a sudden attack. The powerful impact made Hangul's limbs feel as if they were pinned down. Thrown with immense force, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Pain surged, and Hangul roared in turmoil. When he awoke, he painfully wondered where he was. Hangul turned around, looking towards the sole source of light. He was stunned to realize he was locked behind wooden bars. "Where is this place?" Hangul whispered, trying to look outside. The scene outside was surreal, with strange creatures floating in the sky, making him wonder if he had died. He stared blankly at the azure, fish-like creatures swimming in midair. Suddenly, a voice from outside asked if he was awake. The person dropped the bundle of firewood they were carrying and said that Hangul's body was truly strong, despite being in a very bad state. The person explained that they had treated Hangul, but advised him not to overexert himself. The person confessed that they couldn't heal the scar over Hangul's eye, as they had never encountered such a case. "How long do you plan to stay there?" the person asked, then added that this house was their most precious possession. Hangul was stunned, stammering, "You! How could you?" Janbayal turned back with a mischievous smile, greeting the assassin and calling him a terrible old man. Janbayal recounted that when they first found Hangul, they wondered if they should just leave him be. They had considered cruel methods of torture, such as rearranging his ribs or removing precious body parts. "I've thought of hundreds of ways to get revenge," Janbayal said, standing next to an immobile Hangul. "But," Janbayal trailed off, pointing a finger at a glowing white butterfly. Janbayal explained that they hadn't actually carried out any acts of revenge. Hangul just listened in silence. Janbayal felt that the time gained through Grandpa's sacrifice had been wasted. Living a life protecting others, like Grandpa, is much cooler, isn't it? Janbayal asked. Hangul hesitated, speaking up and calling the person by name. Janbayal asked Hangul how he had lived, and Hangul, flustered, replied that he hadn't done anything. The child suddenly froze, recalling their own helplessness. They bowed their head, confessing they couldn't do anything and only pretended that nothing had happened. And Janbayal continued, with an image of Hangul beside them. "Didn't kill anyone either," Janbayal revealed, implying Hangul as well. With a smile and tears, Janbayal said that it seemed Grandpa was still protecting many people. Those words brought a faint, gentle smile to Hangul's lips. Suddenly, Janbayal became lively and urged Hangul to ask anything he wondered about. Hangul appeared flustered, feeling overwhelmed and suffocated. While Janbayal began to explain about this place, a scene unfolded. Green aggressively roared at an intruder, startling Janbayal and Hangul. With a terrifying clown-like face, Green recognized the one who had called him a deer. Back in the present, Janbayal tried to explain to a giant goblin leader but was brushed aside. The leader declared this to be the sacred land of the goblins and ordered the arrest of the dark demon Hangul for trial. Hangul growled angrily. Trial? Who dares? But before he could finish, he was struck down by a powerful attack. A burly goblin leader named Hyunyung declared he would do everything his way. His power shattered a nearby house, making Janbayal scream in terror. Hyunyung pointed forward, threatening to chop off the limbs of any resistors and drag them away. Inside the goblin settlement, a trial was about to begin. Hyunyung sat on a high platform, attended by 2 assistants, while the crowd below murmured that he was their leader. Whispers in the crowd confirmed that he was a terrifying figure not to be underestimated. Hangul was tied backward to a pole in the middle of the courtyard, shouting in indignation and helplessness. A goblin assistant officially began the goblin trial, asking for the prisoner's name. Hung upside down, Hangul still defiantly shouted his name. Hyunyung impatiently waved it off, stating that Hangul's name was unimportant. He stood up, roaring that the most important thing was about to be revealed. In a flash, a part of Hangul's clothing was torn open. Hyunyung pointed directly at Hangul, accusing him of being a dark demon. He held up 2 scrolls, declaring them to be evidence documenting the cruel acts of the dark demon group. Hyunyung demanded everyone listen as he prepared to announce their crimes. The diverse crowd of goblins looked up with solemn expression. Standing on the platform, Hyunyung unrolled a large scroll before the silent crowd. The entire area shook as he unrolled the scroll. Even his assistants looked bewildered. Hyunyung began reading the first indictment about a fire in Gamganshan that resulted in 9 deaths. A series of other crimes were listed, from looting and massacres to an attack on the magistrate's office, allegedly carried out by Lee Do-hyung. Tied up backward, Hangul yelled in indignation. Why blame me for what others did? I feel wronged. Hyunyung coldly held up the indictment scroll and continued. And Captain Kim Cheomji and his family were massacred. The indictment echoed, 21 dead, 1 survivor. The main house burned down, leaving both Hangul and Janbayal stunned. Hyunyung roared furiously. You still claim innocence? I'll rip that mouth off. Janbayal tried to speak. Boss. Even so, because of that person. But the goblin leader immediately cut him off. I told you not to interfere, the goblin leader asserted. No matter how much you protect him, it won't change the fact that Old Man Cheomji and Olrak are dead. Therefore, Hyunyung raised his mace high, declaring the final verdict. The highest sentence in the goblin court, condemned to the Syrian punishment. Hangul confusedly asked, what kind? While the crowd whispered that it was a wrestling punishment, Janbayal desperately clutched his head, while Hangul yelled, Hey, why? What is the Syrian punishment? Hangul questioned Hyunyung. Hey bear, you said wrestling? Why are you carrying an axe? Hyunyung grinned sinisterly, swinging his giant axe. Untie him first. Let's see how long you last. Despite Hangul crying out, Hey, wait a minute. With a savage grin, Hyunyung roared, That's Saraeum. At the same time, at a treacherous cliff in the forest, Choi Moo-hyun and a red-haired subordinate were observing from a distance. Choi Moo-hyun turned to ask his subordinate, Are you still not ready? A bespectacled official reported, The surveillance and manipulation are almost complete. By the way, can't we stop this old man from causing trouble? Choi Moo-hyun replied mysteriously. That might be difficult. Inspiration is useful in many ways, causing the official to exclaim in annoyance. Ah, that damn old man. The official turned to Lee Do-hyung, who was standing behind him, and said, But Park Young-gam, why, that insolent brat? Lee Do-hyung spoke, his voice full of concern. You say the goblins are building a base? In my current state, my strength has certainly decreased significantly. Lee Do-hyung glared at Park Young-gam, who stood silently with an unreadable expression. Enraged by the attitude, Lee Do-hyung roared, Is that all? Do you want to fight? Park Young-gam calmly reassured him, revealing that the army would arrive soon. Elsewhere, Choi Moo-hyun grinned sinisterly while holding a magic orb. Together with Hyunyung, who was brandishing his axe, Choi Moo-hyun declared that from now on, the two would embark on a hunt together, a brutal execution. Suddenly, Hangul appeared next to Hyunyung, insolently calling him Big Bear and demanding to quickly settle things. Hyunyung gritted his teeth, clenching his fist at Hangul's insolent attitude. Without warning, he delivered a devastating punch to Hangul's face. Blown away but still standing, Hangul yelled in surprise. Hey, are you crazy? Hyunyung pointed his axe at him, growling that he was merely postponing the judgment. From the shadows, a fearsome white-haired priest with white hair and red horns observed everything. Returning to the previous scene, Lee Do-hyung showed disdain, preparing to end the battle with a single strike. Meanwhile, Hyunyung roared that he had no time for small fry. He grabbed Hangul and used a goblin wrestling move, throwing him like a weapon. Hangul helplessly flew straight into a horde of monsters, creating an explosion, and muttering curses. The white-haired priest declared decisively, "Fine. Even if they die, I will bring their bodies back here." Hearing the command, Hangul turned to yell at Hyunyung, then froze in shock. His rage ignited, Hangul charged forward with terrifying speed. Hyunyung blocked the attack, roaring, "Did you just call me small fry?" Lee Do-hyung wondered in astonishment if he was seeing an illusion. Meanwhile, Hyunyung roared, calling Hangul an annoying fly. Hangul landed on the shattered ground, mocking the giant's slow speed. With hateful eyes, Hangul tightened his grip on his weapon, growling, "If I'm a fly, then you're a maggot." He lunged into the air, delivering a downward strike. Despite being injured, Hyunyung roared wildly, declaring he would kill Hangul immediately. Hangul landed lightly, sarcastically remarking that Hyunyung couldn't even catch him. Hyunyung burst out laughing at the insolence, but Hangul only retorted with another insult about his face. His rage reaching its peak, Hangul yelled and charged to attack once more. Suddenly, an action by Hangul made his opponent exclaim in shock. "What? This bastard!" At the same time, elsewhere, a new leader named Gyumchi confidently pointed the way, declaring he would lead everyone to Baekdu Mountain. When a subordinate questioned him, Gyumchi immediately asserted his authority, demanding to be called Boss Gyumchi. Memories of a past rampage flooded back, as Hangul massacred enemies and roared. He had once cruelly declared, "You have crossed a line that should not be crossed." In another flashback, a straw hat goblin hastily urged the crowd to flee. He yelled loudly, warning that if they didn't quickly get past Janbiel's house, where the barrier ended, they would all be killed. Leading the way, the straw hat goblin suddenly stopped, sensing something was wrong. Returning to Gyumchi's group, he explained the plan to return to their homeland, Baekdu Mountain, to avoid causing chaos. Gyumchi also revealed that a servant named Kim Mushin was waiting there, which impressed his subordinates. No sooner had he finished urging everyone to trust him than a blinding light suddenly appeared, leaving Gyumchi stunned. In the midst of their excitement, Gyumchi's group was suddenly attacked by a fierce burst of flames, causing everyone to scream in pain. Gyumchi gritted his teeth, enduring the pain, horrified and wondering why the fire had suddenly appeared. A mysterious voice echoed, scoffing that they were merely scavengers, leaving behind only scrap. Still dazed, Gyumchi struggled to get up, checking on his subordinates and looking towards the attacker. A fully armored warrior with a blazing spear appeared, introducing himself as Spearmaster Hongyom-gi, 10th rank of the Dark Demon Legion, here to clean up the aftermath. Gyumchi roared in fury, bitter that everything had fallen apart just as he was getting used to being the leader. Suddenly, a large warrior wearing a red mask appeared, mocking Gyumchi and challenging him to run for entertainment. The masked figure continued, demanding that Gyumchi entertain him while fleeing. Immediately after, a black and white-haired warrior charged to attack the giant masked figure. The black and white-haired warrior dodged attacks while scoffing that his opponent was too slow to hit him. The giant masked figure growled in response, saying those attacks were just like an itch. He let out an earth-shattering roar and counterattacked, while the black and white-haired warrior also charged to confront him. The giant masked figure suddenly recognized his opponent, while the black and white-haired warrior muttered, "Big Bear, my mistake." Big Bear roared furiously, calling the other a troublesome bug. Both charged at each other, using combat techniques such as cat's claw and goblin grapple, ankle hook. The black and white-haired warrior delivered a powerful kick, creating a small energy orb that struck Big Bear. From afar, Gyumchi sensed a familiar aura emanating from the battle. Wielding a small axe, the black and white-haired warrior praised Big Bear and continued to provoke him. Big Bear furiously yelled, asking why his opponent's foul mouth never shut up. The black and white-haired warrior deftly dodged a devastating punch and scoffed, "I told you you were too slow." The black and white-haired assassin charged forward with terrifying speed. Big Bear roared furiously, calling his opponent a damned fly, while the black and white-haired assassin secretly thought that a single hit would kill him. "If I catch you, I'll tear you apart." Big Bear frantically roared. He took a deep breath, concentrating all his strength into his fist. The devastating punch created a terrifying impact. However, Big Bear was astonished to find that what he had caught was a tail, irritably wondering, a fly and now a mouse? The owner of the tail laughed loudly and scoffed, "A mouse? Your mouth is truly filthy." The tail tightened its grip on Big Bear, rendering him immobile. Immediately, another warrior charged in and delivered a thunderous punch to Big Bear's face. The force of the impact was so strong that it made Big Bear cough up blood. The attacker's fist was wrapped in a red band. Just then, Park Youngam appeared, sarcastically asking, "Long time no see, Hangul, but what's with that appearance?" Hangul was completely stunned, stammering in reply, "Old man Park? Why are you here?" A red-haired dark demon also yelled, "Hey, you damned Hangul, why are you still alive? Am I the only one who didn't know?" That person yelled, demanding everyone be silent. Choi Moo-hyun coldly looked at Hangul and said, "That pathetic face of yours hasn't changed, has it? Recognizing his enemy, Hangul exclaimed in horror. "Fifth rank, Choi Mu, Hyun. Why is that mad killer here?" Somewhere, a candle suddenly flickered out. Back in the battle, Big Bear roared, still determined to kill his opponent. But the black and white-haired assassin suggested, "Do as you please. For now, let's take down that thing first." From afar, Hong Yomji silently observed the entire chaotic scene. A masked figure reported that Mount Songak was in trouble and needed assistance. That person asked if a powerful figure could lend them aid. The reporter called the figure Lord Asura. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the two toned-haired warrior suggested Big Bear a temporary truce to deal with their common enemy. Big Bear roared furiously and clenched his fist, seemingly agreeing. Back elsewhere, Asura coldly stated that it was a name he no longer remembered. However, Big Bear was hit by a third attacker's blow and sent flying. The striped-tailed warrior landed arrogantly, making his opponent yell in surprise. Big Bear roared, ignoring the agreement and throwing a punch at the two-toned-haired warrior, declaring that he was only postponing his judgment. Asura stood silently, radiating a terrifying aura. Big Bear roared that he had no time for small fry. He grabbed his enemy's tail, using a grapple to slam his opponent straight to the ground. The two-toned-haired warrior sighed in exasperation as the shockwave from the attack swept away the nearby goblin. Asura growled his agreement, declaring he would bring back even their corpses if necessary. With a terrifying smile, Asura demanded that the other keep their damned promise. A vortex of dark energy formed, signaling Asura's departure. Elsewhere, a mysterious, shadowy figure called a red-haired person Hanul. Miho instructed Hanul to charge the chessboard, table, chairs, and even the chess pieces to Lord Baki's bill. Both cheerfully admitted that they were illiterate with numbers. A terrifying sound echoed as Big Bear's fist collided with the striped tail of the warrior with the striped tail. With pure strength, Big Bear continued his assault, determined to overwhelm his opponent. In another battle, Hyunyung roared furiously, declaring that the enemies didn't need to live and he would kill them now. His opponent, the assassin with black and white hair, scoffed, asking if Hyunyung truly thought he could catch him. Hyunyung sneered that at least his ears were still working, but the assassin with black and white hair retorted that Hyunyung's face was the rotten one. Roaring in fury, the assassin with black and white hair charged forward, plunging into the melee. The battlefield descended into chaos as he mercilessly struck down a goblin, simultaneously letting out a cry of pain. Another goblin exclaimed in horror at the attacker's audacity. Meanwhile, Gyumchi rallied his troops, pointing the way forward and announcing their destination as Mount Baekdu. When a subordinate questioned him, Gyumchi proudly corrected them, demanding to be called Boss Gyumchi. Back in battle, the assassin with black and white hair seethed with indignation, roaring at the goblin's insolence. He angrily accused them of trying to steal something useless yet incredibly precious to him. Landing firmly, he declared that they had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Gritting his teeth, he clenched the axe handle and growled that he would never forgive them. Leaping over the terrified goblins, the assassin with black and white hair swore to kill them all. In a distant memory, a voice echoed near a small hut, urging everyone to move faster. The Straw Hat Goblin urged his kin, warning that they would be killed if they were slow and explaining that the protective barrier ended right after Janbayal's house. While leading the fleeing crowd, the person called for everyone to be vigilant before abruptly stopping in confusion. Another goblin frantically realized Janbayal was nowhere to be found, and a goblin with deer antlers confirmed this. Gyumchi explained that to avoid chaos, the group would return to their old homeland, Mount Baekdu. Gyumchi also revealed that his servant, Kim Mushin, was there as well. With surging confidence, Gyumchi declared that everyone just needed to trust this great leader. Immediately, a sudden fiery explosion occurred, sending the entire group flying amidst terrified screams. A straw hat goblin frantically ran over, calling Gyumchi's name in shock. With flames licking his face, Gyumchi snarled, not understanding why the fire had suddenly appeared. A mysterious voice echoed, scoffing that others had taken all the good things and left only scraps. Bound by the flames, Gyumchi struggled to his feet and anxiously asked about everyone's condition. Gyumchi angrily punched the ground, lamenting that everything had fallen apart just as he was getting used to being a leader. Hyunyung appeared menacingly, scoffing, "Are you giving up so soon? You'd better run for your lives." Hyunyung added, demanding that they entertain him while fleeing. Suddenly, the assassin with black and white hair plunged into battle, delivering a direct kick to Hyunyung's face. Panting, the assassin with black and white hair mocked Hyunyung for being too slow to hit him. Hyunyung roared back that those attacks were pathetic, not even enough to make him itch. Hyunyung roared and unleashed a devastating blow, but the assassin with black and white hair quickly dodged it. The assassin with black and white hair suddenly noticed another opponent, apologizing to Big Bear. Both the assassin with black and white hair and Hyunyung were extremely annoyed, with Hyunyung calling his opponent a troublesome bug. The two clashed in a high-speed confrontation, using techniques like cat's claw and goblin ankle hook. The assassin with black and white hair kicked Big Bear and complimented that the blow was quite good. Hyun-young roared, enraged by his opponent's incessant provocation. Dodging a sky-shattering axe swing, the black and white-haired one mocked Hyun-young for being too slow. The black and white-haired assassin let out a belligerent yell. From afar, Hangel's blue eyes widened, astonished by the unfolding scene. Hyun-young frantically swung his axe, calling his opponent a damned fly, while the black and white-haired assassin secretly thought that one hit would be certain death. "If I catch you, I'll tear you to shreds," Hyun-young roared in a fit of rage. He took a deep breath, channeling all his strength into a punch. However, that powerful punch was unexpectedly blocked. Hyun-young was stunned to see a stranger, annoyed that after flies, now mice were appearing. "Mice, huh? Your mouth is truly filthy," the newly arrived warrior retorted, his striped tail lashing through the air. Immediately, the tail coiled tightly around Hyun-young's body, forcing him to strain against it. "You've rendered my soldiers useless. You'll pay with your life," Hyun-young screamed, with the shadow of the white-haired priest behind him. The striped-tailed warrior unleashed a fatal attack, his arm transforming into a surge of dark energy that pierced through Hyun-young's chest. Hyun-young screamed in pain, fresh blood gushing from his mouth. The giant's body began to disintegrate into dust particles after the devastating attack. A voice echoed, calmly remarking on the scene of swirling dust. Park Youngam appeared, greeting Hangul and asking why he looked so pathetic. Hangul was completely stunned, stammering, "Old man Park? Why are you here?" Another red-haired dark demon also rushed over, angrily questioning Hangul why he was alive and no one had informed him. Questioned, Hangul irritably muttered that the one who had just left everything behind was the most talkative. Amidst this, the red-haired dark demon let out a thunderous roar, demanding silence from everyone. A cold voice emanated from Choi Moo-hyun, remarking that Hangul's pathetic face hadn't changed at all. Hangul froze, horrified to recognize 5th Squad Commander Choi Moo-hyun, and wondering why that mad killer was here. Meanwhile, another battle erupted as Hyun-young challenged a white and black-haired warrior, who replied that he would take him down later. The white and black-haired warrior turned to call his giant comrade, Big Bear, suggesting they both attack Hyun-young for a quick finish. Hyun-young gnashed his teeth, clenching his fists in preparation for the confrontation. The white and black-haired warrior lunged forward, swinging his axe, making Hyun-young scream as he took the full force of the attack. Suddenly, another black-haired warrior appeared, blocking the attack, and asking in astonishment if his opponent was insane. This person easily blocked Hyun-young's punch, declaring that he was merely postponing judgment. Hyun-young growled, contemptuously declaring he had no time for small fry. The black-haired warrior then used his striped tail to knock Hyun-young down and yelled, "Get lost!" Hyun-young was sent flying into the goblin crowd, making Hangul sigh in exasperation. The white and black-haired warrior commented on his opponent's stubbornness, then suddenly looked confused. The black-haired warrior landed firmly after delivering his blow. Immediately, the white and black-haired warrior lunged to attack, angrily asking if he had just been called small fry. Hyun-young stood up, scoffing that his opponent wasn't small fry but an annoying fly. But the white and black-haired warrior easily dodged the attack and called him slow. The black-haired warrior stomped his foot hard on the ground, demonstrating his power. Provoked, the white and black-haired warrior tightened his grip on his weapon, growling, "If I'm a fly," the striped-tailed warrior roared, "So you're a maggot?" Then delivered a devastating kick to his opponent. He roared in fury, declaring he would kill the enemy immediately as there was no need to confirm the truth anymore. Knocked far back, the white and black-haired warrior snarled, "Did I hear that right? It sounds like you're saying you can actually catch me?" The striped-tailed warrior laughed loudly, mocking his opponent's words, but the other was no less sharp, retorting that his face was just as rotten. His anger flaring, the striped-tailed warrior yelled, "What? This bastard!" Elsewhere, Jeomchi confidently pointed a finger skyward, declaring to his comrades to trust and follow him to Baekdu Mountain. A subordinate questioned, calling out Jeomchi's name, but was immediately cut off by him and told to call him Boss Jeomchi. The wood-faced subordinate obediently complied, but still confusedly asked why they had to go to Baekdu Mountain. Jeomchi explained that since the subordinate was new, he wouldn't know, and began to recount their gang's story. He revealed that 12 years ago, a major incident involving a mad goblin occurred in Najumak province, causing Shinrak, Hyunwong, and the Fox to go there. Jeomchi recounted that there, Hyunwong and the Fox had a great battle and completely split apart. After that, Hyunwong built a fortress on Songgak Mountain, while the Fox snuck into Gaegyong and opened a tavern. Therefore, to avoid causing chaos in Gaegyong, the group decided to return to their original homeland, Baekdu Mountain. Jeomchi further revealed that he had a servant there named Kim Mushin. He was enthusiastically urging everyone to trust him when a sudden explosion occurred, leaving him stunned. Jeomchi's entire group was thrown back by the flames, screaming in agony. Jeomchi roared in anger, not understanding why the fire had suddenly appeared. A mysterious voice echoed, disparaging that others had taken all the good things and left only scraps. After the explosion, Gyumchi struggled to his feet and anxiously checked on his comrades, while also wondering about the attacker. From above, Hong Yomji, the 10th-ranked spearmaster of the Dark Demon Corps, looked down contemptuously, thinking he only had to clean up the aftermath. Below, Gyumchi snarled furiously, bitter that everything had fallen apart just as he was getting used to being the boss. Facing him, Hyunyung scoffed, asking if he was already planning to give up so soon. Hyunyung advised him that he'd better run to save his life, and make sure to entertain Hyunyung in the meantime. Immediately, a white and black-haired warrior lunged to attack Hyunyung with terrifying speed. That person gasped, mocking that Hyunyung was too slow to hit him. Hyunyung snarled back that those attacks were so weak they didn't even make him itch. Hyunyung let out an earth-shattering roar, charging to attack the enemy. Both appeared annoyed, with Hyunyung calling his opponent an annoying bug. Using the cat's claw technique, the white and black-haired warrior dodged the goblin's ankle hook attack. That person let out a yell and delivered a precise kick. After the attack, that person sarcastically praised his opponent. Enraged, Hyunyung roared, asking why that person's rotten mouth never shut up. The white and black-haired warrior once again narrowly dodged the attack. Realizing Hyunyung's terrifying strength, that person secretly thought that just one hit would be fatal. Hyunyung furiously yelled that if he caught him, he would tear him to shreds. He took a deep breath, concentrating his strength into his fist. Suddenly, a giant sword lunged forward, making the white and black-haired warrior wonder in astonishment about the sword. Hyunyung roared, annoyed by the interference of someone he called a rat. In response to the insult, the black and white striped tail tightened, and its owner mocked Hyunyung's foul mouth. Hyunyung strained in pain as the tail wrapped around him, constricting him. He furiously yelled that the other had incapacitated his soldiers and would pay with his life. Without warning, the tailed warrior delivered a devastating punch straight to Hyunyung's face. Blood splattered as the goblin leader's face distorted under the tremendous impact. The punch concluded with a powerful shockwave, demonstrating the terrifying strength of the attacker. From afar, a voice echoed, commenting on the scene of dust billowing after the attack. Park Youngam, a man wearing a mask and glasses, suddenly appeared and greeted Hangul. Hangul was completely stunned, not understanding why Old Man Park was here. Another red-haired dark demon also yelled, questioning why Hangul was still alive and in this place. Meanwhile, the black and white-haired warrior fighting nearby sarcastically remarked to the one who had just yelled. The red-haired dark demon roared, demanding silence from everyone and restoring order. Choi Mu-hyun, their commander, coldly remarked that Hangul's pathetic expression hadn't changed at all. Hangul was horrified to recognize Choi Mu-hyun, the mad killer, and trembled, wondering why he was here. Choi Mu-hyun raised his hand, ordering the entire Dark Demon Legion, calling Hangul a traitor who had colluded with the goblins. The eyes of Choi Mu-hyun and Park Youngam gleamed with determination, ready for action. Immediately, the entire army charged towards Hangul under orders to apprehend him, making Hangul himself scream in astonishment. Hangul was dumbfounded, unable to believe his ears as he was accused of being a traitor. A masked dark demon roared, demanding the intruders leave immediately, and launched an attack at the severely wounded Hyunyung. He was surprised to see Janbiol charging straight towards him instead of fleeing. Hyunyung growled, challenging them to fight fire with fire, while the dark demon roared, deeming it ridiculous. Janbiol yelled, releasing a stream of blue energy from their hand. However, that attack was aimed directly at leader Hyunyung's chest. Janbiol maintained a calm expression as the dark demon's hand lunged forward. The dark demon stammered, completely bewildered by what was happening. He grabbed Hyunyung's face and yelled, "What kind of joke is this?" upon seeing Janbiol standing on the goblin leader's back. Hyunyung painfully asked why, and Janbiol replied that it was a tactic of, to deceive the enemy. One must first deceive their allies. A healing blue light emanated from Janbiol's hand, astonishing Hyunyung as his wounds began to close. Janbiol revealed their ability to heal all wounds, urged their leader to fight, and admitted to being very scared. The dark demon was stunned to see Hyunyung still standing after his fatal attack. As his strength returned, Hyunyung clenched his fist, recalling the scene that had turned the mountain fortress into this. In a flashback, a white-haired goblin warrior was defeated, bitterly scolding his opponent for cowardly, using the demon mask armor. A red-haired dark demon aggressively declared there would be no mercy for traitors. Another muscular goblin warrior was mocked, but still responded defiantly. The red-haired dark demon's hair transformed into grotesque tentacles, displaying overwhelming power. He delivered a devastating punch to the white-haired goblin warrior's face. The red-haired dark demon easily subdued him and landed another critical blow to his opponent's stomach. He clicked his tongue, showing annoyance despite completely dominating the battle. Pinioned under Hangul's weapon, Lee Do-hyung growled, accusing his opponent of using dirty tricks. Hangul scoffed that it was called strategy, and took the opportunity to criticize Lee Do-hyung's appearance. Lee Do-hyung asked again blankly, not understanding the sarcastic remark. Suddenly, Lee Do-hyung changed the subject, mentioning a sensitive collection they had once discussed. Despite being attacked by Hangul, Lee Do-hyung still tried to yell instructions to find that collection no matter what, should anything happen to him. Lee Do-hyung thought to himself in disappointment. Hangul always acted this way. Lee Do-hyung furiously roared, not understanding how Hangul could still spout nonsense even when accused of treason. Lee Do-hyung unleashed a powerful energy attack, while Hangul desperately lamented his ironic fate. Hangul turned to call Old Man Park, demanding an explanation, but Park Young-gam just smiled and said that children grow up through battles. Old Man Park thought to himself that the situation wasn't good, but he wasn't worried they would seriously injure each other. Suddenly, a voice rang out, demanding Hangul follow for an investigation. Startling him, Hangul challenged, confident in his rank, but Park Young-gam merely sneered, saying an old man like him wouldn't act personally. Old Man Park added that fighting was for the younger generation. Lee Do-hyung lunged to attack, roaring that Hangul was a traitor. His assault so powerful, it sent Park Young-gam flying. Hangul irritably scratched his head, grumbling about why he had brought such an idiot along. Lee Do-hyung roared, activating the hidden power of the demon mask. A barrage of energy-controlled swords flew up, forming a deadly vortex aimed directly at Hangul. Hangul clicked his tongue, skillfully using his weapon to deflect the incoming swords. Lee Do-hyung was stunned, realizing something as he saw Hangul effortlessly neutralize his attack. "So you've been deceiving us all this time," Lee Do-hyung yelled and charged, but Hangul merely brushed him off and called him an idiot. Lee Do-hyung recalled that he initially found Hangul strange, but after missions together, that thought gradually changed. In the present, Hyun-young roared defiantly, charging to attack Lee Do-hyung with Janbyul on his shoulder. Lee Do-hyung clicked his tongue in annoyance, not expecting to face a goblin with healing abilities. His thoughts returned to the confrontation with Hangul, yelling that he had never thought Hangul was a traitor colluding with goblins. Meanwhile, Choi Moo-hyun observed from afar, concluding that Hangul must have colluded with them upon seeing Kim Cheomji's descendant alive. Distracted, Lee Do-hyung was seized by Hyun-young, who roared, asking why he dared to lower his guard. Hyun-young delivered a devastating punch, releasing a glowing red spherical energy entity that shot straight towards Lee Do-hyung. Lee Do-hyung screamed in pain as the entity exploded right in front of him. His entire body was thrown into the air by the tremendous destructive force. Collapsed on the ground, Lee Do-hyung stared in horror at Hyun-young's colossal figure towering above him. Hyun-young scoffed that it was just one blow, while Janbyul on his shoulder felt nauseous. Lee Do-hyung realized that with this strength and regenerative ability, a war of attrition would be useless. Suddenly, Hyun-young flinched as something attacked him from below. Lee Do-hyung decided to change tactics, summoning a one-eyed dark entity from the ground. The dark creature lunged towards the stunned Hyun-young, who had no time to react. Lee Do-hyung unleashed his hidden power, activating the Demon Mask Seal, level 5. Hyun-young laughed loudly, scoffing that his opponent had only thrown a rock and deeming it useless. Lee Do-hyung coldly admitted the rock would have no effect on Hyun-young, as his dark creature swallowed it. The true target was revealed, and Janbyul was horrified to see a dark tentacle aimed directly at them. Lee Do-hyung declared this power would be very useful when he used it to eliminate other goblins. Hyun-young screamed in extreme pain as the shadow tentacles tore his body apart. Amidst the torture, Hyun-young yelled for it to stop, but Lee Do-hyung only responded with a, Covered in blood and wounds, Hyun-young was surprised to see Janbyul and asked why the child was still there. With glowing eyes, Janbyul declared that they would no longer hide. The brave child charged forward, shouting that they wouldn't run away either. A powerful collision occurred as Janbyul attacked. Lee Do-hyung laughed arrogantly, mocking that even a mere child dared to disrespect him. Janbyul roared, demanding an end to their torment. Surprisingly, both Hyun-young and Lee Do-hyung simultaneously yelled at Janbyul not to do it. Despite the warnings, Janbyul unleashed a massive blue energy surge and roared, "Get out of here right now!" The child continued to shout, demanding the enemy leave immediately. Lee Do-hyung clicked his tongue, annoyed by this troublesome interference. Lee Do-hyung's smug expression vanished, replaced by extreme surprise. Hyun-young laughed gleefully, mocking that this was a taste of his own medicine, while Lee Do-hyung was enraged by this ridiculous stunt. Janbyul let out a battle cry, pouring all their strength into the attack. The blue energy engulfed Lee Do-hyung. Janbyul's attack seemed to be affecting the one-eyed dark demon entity. Janbyul watched intently, and Lee Do-hyung's demonic hand began to transform. Lee Do-hyung stared in shock at his hand, which was losing its demonic form and returning to normal. In a fit of rage and confusion, Lee Do-hyung roared, asking if this was some kind of joke. Hyun-young angrily questioned Janbyul, but the child only apologized, saying that to deceive an enemy, one must first deceive an ally. As Janbyul's hand, emitting a green light, touched him, Hyun-young was astonished to feel his wounds healing. Janbiol revealed their identity as a starlight goblin with the ability to heal all wounds, then urged Hyun-young to teach the enemy a lesson. In a flashback, Hangul screamed in pain as he was struck down by a cross-shaped attack. Lee Do-hyung coldly declared that there would be no mercy for traitors. Pinned to the ground, Hangul still mocked Lee Do-hyung, asking if he only had a head for decoration. Hangul continued to sarcastically remark that Lee Do-hyung's decorative head looked like a mess. Enraged, Lee Do-hyung's hair flared up like menacing red tentacle. Lee Do-hyung roared back, asserting that his head was still better than Hangul's. Lee Do-hyung let out a roar and threw a punch, but Hangul easily blocked it with one hand. His attack blocked. Lee Do-hyung subtly clicked his tongue in annoyance. Hangul turned the tables, grabbing Lee Do-hyung's head and asking if he was ready to listen now, while his opponent complained about cheap tricks. Hangul called it strategy, and once again criticized Lee Do-hyung's peculiar head, leaving the latter stunned. When Hangul mentioned a pornographic collection, Lee Do-hyung's eye flashed as if recalling something. Hangul urgently instructed Lee Do-hyung, who was called Seventh, to find that item no matter what if something happened to him. Lee Do-hyung could only sigh, muttering that Hangul was always like this. Hangul flared up, yelling at Lee Do-hyung for still speaking nonsense despite being trapped and his life in danger. Hangul roared, demanding Lee Do-hyung stop calling him by his rank. Covered in wounds, Hangul desperately wondered why that fool listened to everyone but him. Lee Do-hyung delivered the finishing blow, demanding the traitor silently accept his punishment, even as Hangul lamented his cruel fate. In a flashback, Hangul angrily yelled, "Old man Park, say something," but Park Younggam only chuckled nonchalantly, believing children mature through battle. However, deep down, Park Younggam thought this situation was not good at all, though he wasn't worried about them seriously injuring each other. Park Younggam's real concern was Choi Moo-hyun and that goblin, fearing that Hangul wouldn't be able to escape his superior's scrutiny after this fight. Elsewhere, a mysterious figure wearing a red mask with goggles silently thought that, although it was a bit early, there was no other choice. Returning to the current battle, Hyun-young laughed loudly at the power surging within his body. The fanged, masked dark demon sneered in response. "Don't get ahead of yourself." He unleashed the 10 demon palm consecutive strikes, a barrage of relentless attack. Hyun-young roared in extreme pain as he endured the devastating blows. But with an extraordinary effort, Hyun-young braced himself and fought back, declaring he would never fall and surprising his opponent. He turned to ask Janbiol if that was right, while the child on his shoulder tiredly replied that they felt nauseous. Hyun-young encouraged Janbiol to hold on a little longer, promising to show that bastard what weak by day, strong by night truly meant. He charged forward, challenging the arrogant dark demon of the Black Demon Corps to come at him. The dark demon was stunned, realizing, damn it, a goblin with healing abilities? He recalled that they all should have been massacred along with Kim Cheomji a year ago, further solidifying his suspicion that Hangul had colluded with them. Taking advantage of his opponent's unguarded moment, Hyun-young roared and seized the dark demon's arm, making him curse under his breath. Hyun-young channeled his power into a punch to the ground, creating a blazing red one-eyed demon orb. The energy entity shot straight at the dark demon, making him scream in terror as he was engulfed in the explosion. The entire area was bathed in the light of the destructive attack. As the smoke and dust cleared, the dark demon staggered to his feet in pain, facing Hyun-young's towering figure looming before him. Hyun-young sneered, warning his opponent that it was only one blow, while Janbiol on his shoulder felt nauseous. The dark demon with fanged mask muttered to himself, realizing that a battle of attrition would be useless against the opponent's strength and regeneration. Deciding to change tactics, he tensed, summoning a mass of red dark energy with a single eye at its center. The one-eyed entity shot towards Hyun-young, catching the goblin leader slightly off guard. However, Hyun-young easily caught the energy mass, now turned to stone, and burst out laughing, mocking it as merely a pebble. The dark demon bitterly admitted that the attack would have no effect on Hyun-young. The scene abruptly shifted to Hangul's sharp gaze in another battle. Returning, Hyun-young let out a furious roar, calling Janbiol's name and unleashing a terrifying surge of energy. Janbiol also screamed in pain, seemingly resonating with Hyun-young's rage. Elsewhere, Hangul stood amidst a massive explosion, asking in astonishment what the hell was happening. Jeumchi was also in the middle of another battle, loudly complaining about the thick dust obstructing his vision. Upon spotting Lee Do-hyung, whom he called a traitor, Jeumchi immediately decided to flee. Amidst the smoke, Jeumchi was stunned to see a child standing alone. That child was Janbiol, muttering deliriously about the traitor Hangul. The onset of pain made Janbiol cough violently and tremble. The child whispered that it hurt so much, then suddenly sensed another presence. A terrifying voice echoed, "Found you," filling Janbiol with extreme dread. A shadowy hand grabbed Janbiol and dragged the child away while another voice called its name. The scene returned to the present, Hyun-young roaring in a frenzy, unleashing a final attack on the dark demon. Hyun-young roared, cursing the cowardly black demon core. At the same time, Janbiol cried out in pain as an invisible force struck. Janbiol! Hyunyoung desperately screamed, while the child also frantically called out, "Uncle!" As it was dragged away, he gritted his teeth, struggling in helplessness. "Damn it, Janbiol, are you okay?" Hyunyoung asked anxiously, unaware that a dark demon was insidiously laughing behind him. Suddenly, Hyunyoung's eyes flashed with astonishment as he discovered something. Hiding there, are we?" he growled, looking down at an energy vortex beneath his feet. From within the smoke, the dark demon with fanged mask emerged and sneered. "How amusing, watching you panic over a missing child." He leaned down to look at the injured Hyunyoung and continued to provoke. "Come on, try to act tough again, you damn goblin." Restrained, Hyunyoung could only grit his teeth and curse in resentment. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Janbiol suddenly coughed, causing the guarding Hangul to turn back in surprise. "A child? What's it doing here?" Hangul wondered, then yelled as he realized Green had run off. At the same time, Jeumchi was also annoyed that his plan to sneak away amidst the chaos had been foiled. He unexpectedly encountered Janbiol and asked, "Hey kid, what are you doing here?" To which the child bewilderedly replied, "Uncle." Back with Hangul, as he was shouting, a monstrous red arm suddenly reached out and wrapped around him. Hangul strained, resisting in vain against its power. "What the hell is this? What kind of monster is this?" he exclaimed in horror as he was lifted into the air. In its mind, Janbiol faced terror as the insidious dark demon whispered, "Found you." Finally, the dark demon with fanged mask laughed loudly, calling the child by name to mentally torture Hyunyoung. "Your name is Janbiol, isn't it?" Severely wounded, Hyunyoung desperately screamed, urging Janbiol to flee while the child looked back in terror. The dark demon with fanged mask stood defiantly, mocking Hyunyoung's endurance. Janbiol burst into tears, trying to use its healing ability and begging Hyunyoung to get up, but the dark demon quickly grabbed the child's wrist, declaring that all efforts were futile. He lifted Janbiol, growlingly asking if the child was afraid, and promising a cruel release. With a gruesome smile, he prepared an energy attack, threatening that Janbiol would soon feel nothing. Janbiol screamed in extreme agony as the dark energy stream tortured it. In a flashback, Hangul rushed forward, roaring for the attacker to stop, because even if Janbiol was a goblin, it was still just a child. Hangul continued to plead, arguing that there was no need to go this far, but his weapon was blocked. He was astonished to realize that the one blocking his path was Park Young-gam. Hangul gritted his teeth, straining against his comrade's hold. Bound by multiple other weapons, Hangul frantically screamed to be released while Park Young-gam tried to calm him. Park Young-gam thought to himself in despair that they had lost, as Choi Moo-hyun had absorbed the goblin's power. Despite being bound, Hangul turned back with a furious gaze, wondering how he could stand by and watch a child be harmed. Choi Moo-hyun appeared, coldly warning Hangul not to cross the line. He reminded him that their mission was to exterminate goblins, and if Hangul continued, there would be no turning back. Hangul angrily yelled at his superior, questioning whether slaughtering a child was their mission. Choi Moo-hyun questioned Hangul's hesitation. While Hangul thought that if saving a child required hesitation, then he'd rather, Hangul poured all his strength, stomping his foot down and breaking one of the shackles binding him. In the flashback, Hangul roared in indignation, declaring his abandonment of the Black Demon Corps due to their abhorrent action. A red-haired dark demon cursed Hangul, while Choi Moo-hyun merely offered an insidious smile at the defiance. Disregarding orders, Hangul charged to attack, forcing former comrades like Park Young-gam to intervene. Choi Moo-hyun ordered Hangul to stop, but the rebel merely gritted his teeth and defiantly called his commander's name. Immediately, Choi Moo-hyun brought down a colossal pillar of dark energy, crushing Hangul without mercy. However, from where Hangul was struck, gruesome red fleshy tentacles unexpectedly emerged, astonishing everyone. As he was seized by the tentacles, Park Young-gam frantically noticed a strange sensation, similar to goblin energy. However, he quickly realized that this power was far more terrifying and primal than that. That source of power was Janbiol, and Choi Moo-hyun burst into gleeful laughter upon recognizing the child's abundant life force. He regarded the child as an unexpected boon, even as Janbiol screamed in pain as their power erupted. Bound tightly, Park Young-gam could only grumble about the cruel commander's irritating laughter. Amidst the chaos, Hangul smiled triumphantly, revealing that he had managed to plant something on Choi Moo-hyun. Choi Moo-hyun discovered a hairpin lodged in his chest and scoffed that it was a mere poison trick. Hangul coughed up blood but still uttered a curse, stating that Choi Moo-hyun's body would rot the more he resisted. The curse took effect, and Choi Moo-hyun's hand was immediately and violently corroded by dark energy. To Hangul's astonishment, Choi Moo-hyun decided that if it was rotting, he would simply cut it off. Without a moment's hesitation, he personally severed his cursed hand to prevent the poison from spreading. With his remaining arm, Choi Moo-hyun roared, "Die, traitor Hangul," and unleashed his final attack. Hangul could only grit his teeth and endure as he was engulfed by his commander's dark energy. Choi Moo-hyun laughed heartily, gloating that he had acquired Hangul's immense life force and power, deeming Cheoyong's treasure entirely worth it. At the same time, both Hangul and Janbial screamed in extreme agony as their energy was drained. Hangul's screams gradually faded, leaving only desperate laughter as he was completely consumed. In his mind, the image of Kim Cheomji appeared, smiling serenely because the enemy only wanted his old life. His face shone with an earnest plea. With blood-soaked hands, Kim Cheomji made a final offer, ready to trade his own life. His dying words echoed, "Please, spare the child." That memory awakened Hangul. The pain on his face vanished, replaced by a cold, resolute expression. The mass of red flesh consuming Hangul was suddenly overpowered by Hangul's own dark energy. A colossal, pitch-black greatsword with a glowing red blade formed from that energy surge. The blade plunged forcefully into the ground, unleashing a terrifying wave of power. From within the smoke, Hangul emerged in a completely new, demonic form. Exuding killing intent from his entire being, Hangul stared directly at his enemy. He unleashed a devastating punch, creating a sphere of dark energy that hurtled straight towards Choi Moo-hyun. Choi Moo-hyun couldn't react in time, took the full force of the attack, and screamed in pain as fresh blood spurted out. The terrifying explosion shook the ground, leaving behind a devastated crater. Amidst the rubble, Hangul landed steadily. Park Youngam and another dark demon were stunned, unable to believe Hangul's new form. Hangul gripped the hilt of his blade tightly, ready for the fated battle. Choi Moo-hyun sneered, "So you've finally revealed your true nature, you filthy traitor." In his demonic form, Hangul let out a roar, challenging Choi Moo-hyun. "Shut up and get lost," Hangul growled. "You bastard." Shockwaves from their confrontation ravaged everything around them. Elsewhere, Goblin Non-Ram was rushing to find Janbiol when he suddenly froze in astonishment. An invisible force flung Goblin Non-Ram into the air, causing him to scream desperately. After being violently tossed around, Goblin Non-Ram stared in shock at the scene before him. He was horrified to see both Janbiol and Hyun-young collapsed on the ground. "Janbiol, wake up." Goblin Non-Ram shook the child and turned to yell at Hyun-young. "Bear, you're here. How did it come to this?" Hyun-young gritted his teeth bitterly. "Damn it. If only I had my mace here, I wouldn't have been defeated like this." Green and Goblin Non-Ram desperately called Janbiol's name as the child began to cough violently. Goblin Non-Ram tried to reassure, "Hang in there, you'll be fine once we get to the fox." But Janbiol stopped him. "Wait, we can't go like this." Janbiol looked up towards the distant battle and called out, "Hey, Uncle." Through the child's eyes, Hangul was confronting Choi Moo-hyun, but his life force was rapidly slipping away. Janbiol realized that in this state, Hangul would die in moments. "Worry about yourself first," Goblin Non-Ram exclaimed in a panic as he saw Janbiol begin to exert power. "Hey, what are you doing?" Hyun-young also worriedly tried to stop him, but Janbiol just smiled softly, abandoning someone who can be saved. "Isn't cool at all, is it?" Janbiol said, a sphere of healing light forming at his fingertip. Powerless, Hyun-young could only grit his teeth and curse in despair. Hangul roared in anger, declaring that he still had matters to settle with Choi Moo-hyun. Witnessing this, Hyun-young yelled, ordering Green to provide cover and threatening to kill all enemies. Choi Moo-hyun was astonished, unable to understand why Hangul had suddenly gained such terrifying power. He roared and unleashed a spiky red energy attack towards Hangul. Choi Moo-hyun unleashed 20 demonic power palms, creating a series of consecutive attacks. In response, Hangul activated his skill, Body Enhancement, Black Cat. He dashed forward with terrifying speed, leaving swirling trails of black energy. Choi Moo-hyun's attack was blocked with a Q. Hangul reached out, his hand enveloped in red energy, and absorbed the opponent's attack. Rebuffed, Choi Moo-hyun staggered back in pain. With a demonic wing sprouting from his back, Hangul coldly warned Choi Moo-hyun to leave. Choi Moo-hyun realized in horror that his power was being drained by Hangul. He couldn't believe that the power bestowed by the Grand General was being usurped by another. Enraged, Choi Moo-hyun decided to unleash the Ghostface 5 seals. Hangul merely observed in silence, unfazed by his opponent's transformation. Choi Moo-hyun unleashed his ultimate technique, 100 Demon Power Palm, as a giant arm of flesh and bone lunged forward. Hangul stood firm, preparing to face the destructive attack head-on. The shockwave from the clash was so powerful that it knocked back Hyun-young, who was standing far away. Other Dark Demon members, including Park Youngam, were also blown away amidst screams. Amidst the battle, Park Youngam worried about Hangul and called out to Lee Do-hyung, who confirmed he was still alive. Park Youngam urgently demanded that Hangul and Choi Moo-hyun be separated immediately, but Lee Do-hyung thought Hangul deserved a beating. With no time for jokes, Park Youngam declared he would handle Hangul and leave Choi Moo-hyun to Lee Do-hyung. Lee Do-hyung was astonished, not understanding why such a division of labor was made. Park Young-gam warned that if they delayed any longer, everyone here would die, which annoyed Lee Do-hyung for being sidelined again. Reluctantly obeying, Lee Do-hyung demanded that Park Young-gam explain everything after the battle ended. Park Young-gam grimly thought to himself that they could only do so if they were lucky enough to survive, just like the tragedy 12 years ago. Meanwhile, Choi Moo-hyun coughed up blood after taking the attack. He staggered to his feet, admitting that Hangel's power was indeed overwhelming. Choi Moo-hyun looked up, astonished by the sight before him. From within the dust and smoke, a demonic figure with white hair and Hangel's long tail gradually emerged. Hangel's new appearance was clear. White hair, a mask fused with his skin, and a body covered in dark patterns. Choi Moo-hyun couldn't believe how Hangul could survive that attack and even become stronger. The red flesh entity on Choi Moo-hyun's arm disintegrated into pieces. Choi Moo-hyun roared in pain as he suffered the backlash from his own power. Hangul stood above, looking down at the fallen Choi Moo-hyun, and repeated his earlier words. With his blade on his shoulder, Hangul declared that if Choi Moo-hyun had no more tricks, then he should die. Cornered, Choi Moo-hyun gritted his teeth and let out a frantic scream. A giant demonic entity with glowing red eyes appeared behind him, while Choi Moo-hyun fearfully begged it to stay away. Hangul snarled, ordering his opponent to shut up and die. Choi Moo-hyun lunged forward with terrifying speed to block the attack. The two collided, creating a fierce energy explosion. Suddenly, Hangul faced an interloper, gruffly telling Lee Do-hyung to get lost. Lee Do-hyung angrily warned Park Young-gam to get out of the way, declaring he wouldn't hold back anymore. Park Young-gam scoffed, asserting he wouldn't let the child he raised die. A red-haired dark demon appeared to assist, and Choi Moo-hyun weakly thanked him for arriving just in time. The red-haired dark demon, still confused by the thanks, realized in horror that tentacles were coiling around him. Choi Moo-hyun smiled sinisterly, confirming that he was indeed very grateful. Completely paralyzed, the red-haired dark demon screamed in despair, asking why he was being attacked by his own senior. Choi Moo-hyun let out a bestial roar, his eyes glowing with dark power. Before Hangul's eyes, Choi Moo-hyun brutally attacked his own comrade. Immediately after, Hangul collapsed as a sword unexpectedly pierced him from behind. Choi Moo-hyun, his body transforming into a grotesque mass of flesh, mocked Hangul. He declared that his recent comrade was a delicious meal, despite the victim's desperate screams. Completely transformed, Choi Moo-hyun turned to his next target and called out Lee Do-hyung's name. With a long, repulsive tongue, he licked his lips and said he would enjoy his meal. Lee Do-hyung was stunned, roaring to ask what the crazy bastard was doing now. Without a word, Lee Do-hyung charged into a decisive battle with Choi Moo-hyun in an explosion of energy. Hangul could only watch the scene before him in horror. Choi Moo-hyun coldly blew up the head of the dark demon who had just arrived as reinforcement, grumbling about his meal being disturbed. In his new monstrous form, he roared, scolding his opponent for not knowing table manners. Lee Do-hyung roared furiously, asserting that he was no one's food. Immediately, Lee Do-hyung lunged, unleashing a powerful sword strike towards Choi Moo-hyun. The attack ended, leaving an empty space and Lee Do-hyung's sword broken in half. Choi Moo-hyun appeared, completely unharmed, mocking the title Goryeo greatest sword. He continued to sneer that such a great individual's end was truly pathetic. As Lee Do-hyung was knocked back, Hangul screamed his name in horror. Choi Moo-hyun smiled sinisterly, telling his opponent not to be too disappointed. Both Hangul and Park Young-gam were stunned when Park Young-gam realized Choi Moo-hyun was preparing to use Lee Do-hyung's skill. Choi Moo-hyun scoffed that Lee Do-hyung might not be the greatest swordsman, but he was a very useful lunchbox. He unleashed his power, activating the ghost face armor technique. Combining his skills, Choi Moo-hyun used Control Sword by Chi to manipulate the fragments and unleashed the 30 demonic power palm. Hangul frantically realized Park Young-gam was right behind him and yelled at him to get out of the way. Choi Moo-hyun's destructive attack surged forward, creating a series of explosions. Park Young-gam was pierced by sword fragments, while Hangul was also affected by the aftershock. Looking down at the two fallen figures, Choi Moo-hyun clicked his tongue, finding their struggles pathetic. Struggling to his feet, Hangul furiously questioned Choi Moo-hyun why he was so insane, and if this was truly the mission of the Black Demon Legion. Choi Moo-hyun snorted coldly, swinging his sharp arm and slashing directly at Hangul, causing fresh blood to spray. Thrown back by the devastating blow, Hangul couldn't resist. Trembling with pain and rage, he let out a roar filled with hatred. Choi Moo-hyun sneered. "You dare use that mouth to speak of the Black Demon Legion's mission? Listen carefully." He began to reveal the true mission of the Black Demon Legion. It is to make him the ruler of this land, and for that, I will do anything. Hangul was horrified to realize that the him Choi Moo-hyun referred to was General Haeonjae Choya. Park Young-gam struggled up and yelled, "Shut up, you bastard fifth. Nonsense. Don't be fooled, Hangul." Choi Moo-hyun stepped closer. "So, you will witness his reign from hell," he said, placing his bloody hand on Hangul's head. Immediately after, a sharp blade from behind pierced through Hangul's chest. Park Youngam was utterly terrified, screaming Hangul's name. Without hesitation, Park Youngam unleashed a skill, summoning countless giant roots from the ground. Bound tightly by the roots, Choi Moo-hyun roared, "Who's there?" Suddenly, the Straw Hat Goblin appeared, pushing Green aside and scolding. "That bastard was speaking informally from the start. Don't you think that's rude?" Hyunyoung also charged forward, roaring furiously at the one who had attacked his comrade. "I'll kill you myself," Hyunyoung yelled, channeling his strength to unleash a goblin wrestling throw. Choi Moo-hyun was pushed back by the attack but still blocked it with his monstrous arm. With just one counterattack, Choi Moo-hyun easily sent Hyunyoung flying far away. Hyunyoung swung his weapon, mocking Choi Moo-hyun for his tricks. Choi Moo-hyun gasped, acknowledging Hyunyoung's tenacity, calling him an annoying goblin. Hyunyoung dismissed his opponent's words, but the nearby Straw Hat Goblin noticed something strange. Suddenly, Choi Moo-hyun lunged to attack, stunning Hyunyoung. Amidst the chaos, Park Youngam screamed Hangul's name in utter panic. The Straw Hat Goblin tried to rouse Hangul, who stood motionless with a vacant expression. All of a sudden, Hangul transformed, his body turning pale, hair changing color, and a black tail sprouting as he whispered in an ancient language. He stomped his foot hard on the ground, creating a violent tremor. A wave of energy erupted, throwing everyone around, both friend and foe. Hyunyoung, the Straw Hat Goblin, and Park Youngam were all blown away in astonishment and pain. Hangul's transformation continued as a red demonic horn began to sprout from his shoulder. His hands were covered in spiderweb-like red patterns, while the horn grew larger and sharper. Hangul's face completed its demonic form, with the red mask merging into his skin and his blue eyes glowing. Hangul let out a sky-shattering roar, unleashing his full overwhelming power. Park Youngam could only stare in horror at his comrade, unable to believe what was happening. Even Choi Moo-hyun was stunned by the sight, muttering that this couldn't be. Within his mind, Hangul felt an overwhelming presence and realized that with this power, he could once again stand by that person. Overcoming his shock, Choi Moo-hyun looked at Hangul with greedy eyes, determined to make this power his own. Choi Moo-hyun roared Hangul's name as the giant red flesh entity disintegrated. Witnessing the scene, Hyunyoung swung his weapon, cursing Choi Moo-hyun as a crazy bastard. From somewhere, a voice echoed, sighing and complaining why everything they did turned out so badly. Hyunyoung was startled to recognize that unlucky voice, while the Straw Hat Goblin appeared and laughed loudly, saying he had been counting on Hyunyoung. Suddenly, Lord Asura appeared, activating a skill called Goblin Club. A shadow blade slashed down, tearing through Choi Moo-hyun's transformed body. Choi Moo-hyun screamed in pain, angrily asking who his attacker was. Lord Asura stood tall, contemptuously calling Choi Moo-hyun a fool consumed by demonic energy and unworthy of speaking to him. He coldly declared that this was no place for someone like Choi Moo-hyun. "So return to the darkness where you belong." The mysterious entity extended his clawed hand, ordering Choi Moo-hyun to disappear immediately. He repeated his taunt, calling Choi Moo-hyun a pathetic fool. Choi Moo-hyun retorted that even if he didn't know who his opponent was, that wasn't something he should say. He stared at his enemy, firmly believing he had seen something clearly. Choi Moo-hyun recognized the demonic energy emanating from his opponent as identical to his own and laughed maniacally, feeling insulted. The white-haired entity sneered, mocking a half-baked individual like Choi Moo-hyun for daring to compare himself. He created a cube of energy in his hand, stating that Choi Moo-hyun didn't even know his place. With the command, "Go," the cube was thrown, once again ordering Choi Moo-hyun to return to the shadows. Choi Moo-hyun and his inner demon were both stunned by the attack. A mysterious white-haired entity suddenly intervened, yelling, "Stand back," and using its power to create a shadow prison, repelling both Choi Moo-hyun and Straw Hat Goblin. Straw Hat Goblin was astonished, then angrily yelled at the stranger, "Hey, you pale bastard, is this thing cursed or something?" The white-haired leader clicked his tongue, scornfully replying that he never thought he'd have to see that unlucky face again. He snapped, saying that if it weren't for his agreement with the fox, he wouldn't want to see Hyunyoung's face, who was roaring in anger at the interruption. Hyunyoung faced the white-haired leader, growling, "I don't care about your circumstances. Get out of here quickly. Just looking at your face makes me sick." Hyunyoung continued to taunt, calling his opponent a weakling clinging to a fox's skirts, and wondering why Chaeyoung and the nine-tailed fox would take in such a person. Hearing the name Chaeyoung, the white-haired leader froze, his eyes flashing with anger. Hyunyoung was surprised by the other's violent reaction. The white-haired leader exuded killing intent, threatening, "You dare utter that name in front of me? You must want to die." While Hyunyoung was still gritting his teeth, Straw Hat Goblin asked eagerly, What is it, want to fight? The white-haired leader declared. We should have settled this 12 years ago. Let's end it today. Hyun-young roared, accepting the challenge, then charged forward and yelled, Fine, I'll dye your pale face red. Just as the two were about to collide, Straw Hat Goblin yelled, Wait, stop right now. Straw Hat Goblin interjected, apologizing for interrupting their battle. He pointed in one direction and asked the white-haired leader, Hey pale friend, is it always like this? The white-haired leader, horrified, realized a fissure leading to the abyss was opening, and hastily yelled, Stand back, dear! A violent energy explosion erupted from the fissure, flinging everyone back, and the white-haired leader screamed in pain. In the epicenter, a blazing blue eye appeared on the white-haired leader's darkened face as he raised a hand blazing with red energy. That hand gathered a massive energy orb, signaling an impending destructive attack. In his demonic form, Hangul unleashed indefinite greedy claws, grabbing the white-haired leader. A shadow tentacle pierced through the white-haired leader's arm, making him cry out in pain. The white-haired leader realized in shock that Hangul's new power and form were completely different from before. From his perspective, Hangul appeared as a gigantic shadow entity, ready to devour everything. The white-haired leader wondered if what he was facing was the embodiment of darkness itself. Deeming Hangul a future threat, he resolved to destroy him even if it meant suffering a backlash. The white-haired leader roared, releasing dark energy to prepare for the finishing blow. Suddenly, Hangul stood still within a magic circle and calmly asked everyone to stop. Both the white-haired leader and Straw Hat Goblin were stunned by this sudden change. Hangul held out his hand and said to stop fighting so they could all return together. A part of Hangul's demon mask shattered, revealing that his true self within had regained control. He playfully pointed towards Janbial, leaving the child bewildered. Hyun-young and Straw Hat Goblin angrily yelled, warning Hangul not to harm Janbial. Hangul told Janbial that the child's place wasn't here, while his demonic body began to crack. Janbial replied, saying that being alone was very lonely, and held out a glowing hand, inviting Hangul to return. Janbial's energy made Hangul clutch his head, writhing in pain. Hyun-young yelled Janbial's name as a massive purifying light explosion erupted from the child. The shockwave from the explosion flung back Hyun-young, Straw Hat Goblin, and the white-haired leader. In the epicenter of the light, Hangul's demonic form seemed to be purified. An arrow flew past the wooden target. The signalman immediately raised a red flag, shouting that the shot had missed. Hyunja Choya, the archer, showed annoyance that he had missed yet again. A white-masked subordinate named Cha-Cha Hong sarcastically remarked that missing all 6 shots was pathetic. Hyunja Choya, annoyed, handed the bow to Cha-Cha Hong, saying it was very difficult to hit the target with. Cha-Cha Hong took the bow, which was revealed to be the Cheoyong treasure, King Chumo's bow, that never missed. Afterwards, Hyunja Choya inspected the acquired treasures and asked about the status of the other item. He noticed a peculiar item, emitting a strange blue light. Cha-Cha Hong explained that it was found while investigating Master Jin's traces. Hyunja Choya smirked, thinking this would be a wonderful gift. Suddenly, he sensed something and whirled around. Hyunja Choya looked down and said that the opponent had finally awakened. He called out Hangul's name, and his identity as Great General of the Black Demons, Hyunja Choya, was also revealed. Cha-Cha Hong frantically ordered all troops to protect their master. Hyunja Choya swept past his subordinates with astonishing speed. He reassured them that he was just warming up and that there were a few rats lurking nearby. Hyunja Choya calmly declared that he had finished off the rats. He ordered his troops to get ready. The bodies of the massacred soldiers lay scattered, and Hyunja Choya declared they would go meet the master of those rats, the emperor.